Welcome to our deep dive today.
Yeah.
We're going to be looking at education and skills and all that in today's world
Uh-huh.
and how it kind of impacts.
Yeah.
We're using Ken Robinson's Out of Our Minds for this.
Yeah.
Yeah, the audiobook you sent over.
Right.
And I have to say, some of this stuff is really, really interesting.
It's so relevant, I think, even all these years later, because it gets at some of these really core tensions in education.
Yeah.
We're in a time of massive change.
Yeah.
And the question is, are our education systems really preparing people for that? I mean, you're
Yeah.
with the skills they need, the mindset.
He starts right off the bat, he talks about this war for talent.
Yeah.
And that companies are having a really hard time finding people
Right.
with the right skills.
Yeah.
And it's not a small problem either.
No, it's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He says, I think it was 75% of companies in one study.
Yeah, something like that.
75% were having this problem.
Yeah. It's a McKinsey study he cites.
Yeah. And it's interesting because it's not even just technical skills. It's like
Right.
soft skills.
Right. Adaptability.
Yeah, adaptability.
The
And
ability to learn. Yeah.
yeah, to grow and learn. And that's a big...
That's huge. Yeah.
Right.
And it has these big knock-on effects, right?
Yeah.
So he connects this to, global inequality.
Yeah.
You've got millions of people who lack basic literacy, numeracy skills.
Yeah.
Youth unemployment is a massive problem, especially in developing economies.
Yeah.
I mean, paints a pretty bleak picture, right, if these trends continue.
It's like we're creating a
Like
whole...
social unrest.
Yeah, like a whole sector of society
Yeah.
that's
Absolutely.
just not prepared.
Yeah.
Not a...
Then you'd think
Mhm.
that companies would be like scrambling to train people.
Yeah, you'd think so.
But he talks about how there's this real hesitancy to do that.
Yeah.
And I was kind of surprised by that. Well, he talks about how companies are afraid to invest in training
Right.
and then have people leave,
Right, yeah.
So there's almost like a fear of
Yeah.
investing in development.
Yeah, if you're on both sides, I guess.
It speaks to a lack of trust,
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
Employees maybe don't trust that the training is going to be valuable.
Right.
And employers don't trust
Yeah, that they're going to stay.
that there's going to be that return on investment.
Yeah.
He actually argues that the short-sightedness is fueling the problem.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
he brings up this idea of the high cost of containment.
Oh, yeah.
And this really struck me.
It's a powerful concept.
It's like he's talking about how
Yeah.
the U.S. spends more on prisons
Than education.
than on education.
Yeah.
And it's not even close.
Like 3 times more per person, something like that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's wild.
And he makes this direct link.
He does, yeah.
Which we...
Between educational underachievement
Yeah.
and incarceration.
Yeah. And it's like, are we...
Makes you wonder, right?
Yeah. Are we investing in potential,
Yeah.
or are we just investing in...
Managing the fallout. Yeah.
managing the
The
consequences?
neglecting it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a big question.
And he doesn't just talk about like the
Right.
big picture stuff.
No, he gets really personal.
He talks about
Yeah.
how all of this impacts students today.
Right.
And he talks about technology and how it's creating this generational divide.
This digital native.
Yeah.
He makes a really good point.
Think about
How
like
good.
we were in school.
Did you have smartphones and tablets and all that?
No.
No, but for kids today,
Yeah.
it's like second nature.
Yeah.
He uses this great anecdote about the wristwatch test.
Yeah.
Ask someone over 30 if they're wearing a watch.
Right.
Chances are they are.
Yeah.
Ask a teenager. They're like, why would I wear a single function device when my phone does everything?
Right. Exactly.
Right.
It just shows you like,
How different.
yeah, how different.
And the generations are.
We can't keep doing things the same way.
No, absolutely not. Education has to adapt
Right.
to the way students learn today,
Yeah.
the way they interact with the world.
Yeah. It's not just technology either.
No, absolutely not.
Cultural shifts.
Cultural shifts.
Family structures are changing.
Yeah.
Gender roles, all of that is in flux.
Yeah.
And that leads to a lot of, complexity for young people.
Right. And then on top of that,
Yeah.
you've got all this pressure to succeed academically.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's
intense.
yeah.
And no wonder we're seeing, rising rates of stress, anxiety.
He talks about this paradox
He does.
where they have to appear laid back
Yeah.
while striving for perfection.
It's like this impossible double bind.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's driving some to, yeah. He even talks about...
Performance enhancing drugs.
Yeah.
Just to cope.
And then he brings up this term, this academic illusion.
Yeah.
What is that?
So it's this idea that
Yeah.
academic ability, the kind of stuff that gets measured by standardized tests and grades, that's the only measure of worth,
Hmm.
right? That's the be all and end all.
So we're judging people's worth based
On this very narrow
this very narrow definition.
slice of their potential.
Yeah.
And that's a problem.
Right, because it's ignoring
Yeah.
all
Or
the
else to
the rest of who they are.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. And so he's saying that's a disservice to a lot of students.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's making them feel like they're not good enough
If they don't.
if they don't fit that mold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think this is where we need to
Start digging deeper
start digging deeper.
into what intelligence really means,
Yeah.
how we can break free from that.
Yeah, break free from the academic illusion. All right, so maybe we'll do that in part 2 of this deep dive.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, so we're back and ready to kind of break free of this academic illusion thing.
Yeah.
So if we're thinking about intelligence in like too narrow a way,
Right.
what's a better way to think about it?
Well, Robinson argues that intelligence is way more than just IQ, right?
Right.
And test scores. He says it's like multifaceted and dynamic.
Yeah.
Different strengths, different ways of expressing it. It's kind of like a kaleidoscope,
Yeah.
all these different facets of human potential.
Right.
And we need to create space for all of them.
Yeah, and he actually uses some really cool examples.
He does, yeah.
Like he talks about Liz Vallow and Evelyn Glennie.
Oh, yeah.
These are deaf musicians
Wow.
who like achieved amazing success.
At the highest levels,
Yeah.
world class.
Yeah, and you think about that, that just blows apart this idea
Right,
that there's only one way to be intelligent,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really does.
And it highlights this amazing thing about the brain,
Right.
this plasticity, this adaptability.
Mhm.
It's not fixed, right? It's constantly evolving, finding new pathways.
And it's not just about these like
Right.
super extraordinary cases.
No, it's all of us.
Yeah, it's like
We all have this potential.
he talks about how we tend to undervalue the arts.
Yeah, he does.
Like they're not as important as
Right,
the core subjects,
right, like math and science.
Yeah. And he has this anecdote about an English lecturer.
Oh, I love this story. Tell me about it.
So this guy, he's denied a promotion,
Yeah.
even though
He's
he's published novels.
written for TV.
Yeah, he's written for TV.
Award-winning stuff.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, you haven't done any research.
It's like
Incredible.
they couldn't see past
They couldn't.
their own biases
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. They had this very narrow definition. Yeah.
of what counts as intellectual work.
Yeah. And you'd think at a university,
Right.
there'd be more openness.
You'd think so.
Yeah. To different ways of.
Different forms of intelligence.
Yeah. How do we.
So how do we break free from
Yeah.
that?
How do we start to
Yeah.
see intelligence?
In a more expansive way.
Yeah. In a more expansive way.
Well, he draws a lot of inspiration from Howard
Oh,
Gardner.
okay.
The theory of multiple intelligences.
Oh, yeah.
So Gardner says, we have different strengths,
Right.
like linguistic, musical, spatial.
Yeah.
It's not just about IQ,
Right.
right?
And that always resonated with me.
It's a much
Like in school, I remember learning about that.
yeah.
And it
It's
just,
a more holistic view, isn't it?
yeah, it made sense to me that people
Yeah.
are good at different things.
It embraces the complexity of human potential,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And it encourages us to see the value in all of that.
Right. And this also kind of leads into
His emphasis on creativity.
Oh, absolutely.
He talks about how creativity,
Yeah.
it's not just about art.
It's fundamental.
Yeah.
It's problem solving,
Right.
innovation.
Right, drives everything, yeah.
He even says,
Yeah.
creativity is as important as literacy and should be treated with the same status in education.
That's a big statement.
It is, but when you think about it,
Yeah.
it makes sense, right?
It does.
Creativity allows us to adapt,
Right.
to come up with new solutions.
Yeah.
It's essential for progress.
So why do we have such a hard time?
Well, there are a few things, right?
Right.
One is fear of failure.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
We're so focused on getting things right
Right.
that we stifle experimentation,
Yeah.
risk-taking.
We don't want to make mistakes.
Exactly.
And that's how we learn, right?
Correct.
It's like,
It's through those mistakes that we
Wow.
really grow.
and then there's also this emphasis on conformity.
Right. Yeah. Like, follow the rules.
Fit in.
Don't rock the boat.
Don't rock the boat.
Right.
Yeah.
And that goes against the whole idea of creativity.
Right. So we're actually creating environments
That are stifling it
that are stifling it.
instead of nurturing it.
Yeah.
He also talks about the separation
Right.
between the arts and the sciences.
Oh, yeah.
Like you're either creative or you're analytical.
Right. It's like left brain, right brain.
Right. But it's not really like that, is it?
No,
The brain's not that simple.
it's way more complicated. Yeah.
He says we need to break down those barriers
Right.
and recognize that creativity is essential in everything,
Yeah.
whether it's science, business, the arts.
Right. So how do we actually,
So how do we cultivate it then?
yeah, cultivate it? How do we create those environments?
Well, he talks about creating environments
Yeah.
that encourage curiosity,
Okay.
experimentation,
Well,
exploration.
so it's about feeling safe
Yeah, safe to try things.
to make mistakes.
Right, even if you fail.
Yeah. Yeah.
Failure is part of the process.
And he uses this really interesting example of
Oh, yeah, what's that?
Las Vegas.
Las Vegas, tell me about it.
It's like this city built
What
on,
a pretty wild idea.
yeah, this wild idea.
Right.
A city in the middle of the desert.
Well, nowhere.
Yeah.
No natural resources.
But it's become this global,
Entertainment hub.
yeah. And it's constantly reinventing itself.
Always pushing the boundaries.
And he's saying there's a lesson there for all of us.
If we want to be creative,
Yeah.
we need to think big.
We need to be willing to take risks.
Take risks, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not just about individuals, though, right?
Right.
It's about organizations, systems.
So there are people already doing this.
He gives some great examples,
Right.
like IDO.
Oh, yeah. I've heard.
They're a global design firm,
Yeah.
and they're known for their human-centered approach.
Okay.
So they create these environments where experimentation is encouraged,
Right.
rapid prototyping,
So they're not afraid to
try things out.
Yeah.
And to iterate quickly.
So they've built creativity into
Their culture.
Into their culture, yeah.
He also talks about Pixar,
And-
the animation studio,
Great.
Toy Story, Finding Nemo.
Yeah.
They have this amazing culture of collaboration,
Okay.
storytelling, continuous learning,
Yeah.
and their workspace is designed to support that.
Right.
Open workspaces, brainstorming areas.
So it's both simulating
Yeah.
and supportive.
Yeah, it's all about creating that environment where people can thrive.
And he's saying we don't have to settle.
We don't have to accept the status quo.
Yeah.
There are other models out there.
And this really connects with education, right?
Absolutely.
Because if we want to raise creative kids,
We need to rethink how we're teaching them.
yeah, so how do we apply these principles?
Well, how do we bring this into the classroom?
Yeah.
Well, he says we need to move away from this standardized,
Right.
one-size-fits-all approach.
And more towards
Personalized learning.
personalized learning, yeah.
Recognizing that students have different strengths,
Right.
different interests, different learning styles.
It makes sense, right?
It does, yeah.
Like you wouldn't expect.
One shoe to fit every foot.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So why do we expect one type of education to fit every student?
And there are schools experimenting with this stuff. right?
Yeah, there's project-based learning,
Okay.
blended learning,
Yeah.
flipped classrooms,
Maker spaces.
all sorts of cool stuff happening.
So it sounds like
It's a real movement
a real movement toward.
toward making education more relevant
Yeah.
to the 21st century.
Yeah. More about the skills
Yeah, the skills people need.
that you need to actually thrive.
Right, to navigate this complex world.
He talks about creating like an educational ecosystem
He does, yeah.
where it's not just one type of.
Right, it's diverse. It's rich. There's a variety
Yeah.
of educational habitats, so to speak.
And this requires a real fundamental change
It does.
in the way we think about education.
It's not just about academics.
Right,
It's
yeah.
about developing the whole person.
So their creativity,
Right.
their emotional intelligence.
Their social skills.
Yeah, yeah.
Their resilience.
It's about nurturing the whole person.
Exactly.
And then this goes back to like
Oh, yeah.
the individual,
Yeah.
your own journey.
It's empowering.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's very empowering.
He's saying, you have unique talents.
Yeah.
It's up to you to find them.
And it doesn't stop when you leave school.
Yeah.
right?
It's lifelong.
It's a lifelong journey.
It's about continuous learning.
Yeah. And we also have a responsibility
We do, yeah.
to create a world.
Everyone has that opportunity.
Right. So to support those who are,
Nurture those talents.
yeah, to nurture the talents.
Yeah.
So what are some practical steps?
That's a great question. And that's something he explores.
Okay.
But before we jump into that,
Yeah.
I want to tell you about Gillian Lynn.
Okay.
It's a really inspiring story.
Right. I'm all ears. Okay. So Gillian Lynn.
Yeah, so her story is really amazing. As a child, she was always fidgeting, couldn't focus in school.
Right.
Back then, they didn't really understand learning differences the way we do now.
Yeah.
So they basically labeled her as, having a learning disorder
Oh.
and said she wouldn't amount to much.
It sounds like she was just kind of wired differently.
Yeah, exactly. Not deficient, just different.
Yeah.
And luckily, her mom was pretty insightful
Yeah.
and took her to a specialist, but not the kind you might think.
Right.
Not a doctor, not a therapist.
Okay.
She took her to a dance studio.
Oh, wow.
And as soon as the music started,
Yeah.
Jillian just, like, came alive.
Wow.
And the doctor who was observing her, he was like, Mrs. Lynn, Gillian's not sick. She's a dancer.
Wow.
Take her to dance school.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
What a turning point.
Right.
Like she finally found that place
Yeah.
where she could just be herself.
Exactly. Where her way of being was celebrated.
Right.
Not seen as a problem.
Yeah. And it didn't stop there, right?
No, it gets even better.
Yeah.
She ends up at the Royal Ballet School,
Wow.
becomes a soloist with the Royal Ballet.
Yeah, okay.
And then she founds her own dance company.
Wow.
Becomes this world-renowned choreographer.
That's incredible.
Working on, huge productions, Cats, Phantom of the Opera.
And they told her she wouldn't amount to anything
No.
because she was fidgeting in school.
It really shows you,
It really shows you.
how limited those labels can be.
Yeah.
And how many different ways there are to be intelligent.
I bet a lot of people listening can relate to that.
Oh, yeah.
Like feeling like you don't quite fit in.
Yeah.
Like your strengths aren't really appreciated.
Or understood.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why Robinson's message is so important.
Right. He's saying we need a revolution
Okay.
in how we think about education, about human potential.
He's not just talking about,
He's not talking about tinkering.
yeah, he's talking about,
He wants a paradigm shift.
yeah, a fundamental shift.
Yeah.
So what would that even look like?
Well, it starts with recognizing that education isn't just about, cramming information.
Right.
It's about igniting passion. It's about curiosity.
It's about preparing people for life.
For life, not just for exam.
Right, exactly.
It's about giving them the skills to navigate this crazy world.
This has been a really, really insightful deep dive.
Yeah, it's been fun.
I feel challenged,
Good.
but also inspired.
That's what we want.
You know,
That's the goal.
yeah.
So I want to leave you with one last thought from Ken Robinson.
Okay.
He said, human resources are like natural resources. They're often buried deep. You have to go looking for them. They're not just lying around on the surface.
Yeah. You have to create the circumstances where they show themselves.
It's a good reminder that everyone has something to offer.
We all have unique gifts.
Right.
And we need to create the conditions for those gifts to flourish.
That's a perfect way to end it, I think.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
And remember, the journey of learning, it never really ends.
Keep exploring.
Keep exploring.
Keep growing.
And keep reaching for your full potential.